The Story of Lucretia. From Livy's Early History of Rome, Book 1. Translated by Aubrey De Sélincourt. The attempt was made to take Argia by assault. It failed. Siege operations were begun, and the army settled down into permanent quarters. With little prospect of any decisive action, the war looked like being a long one, and in these circumstances leave was granted, quite naturally, with considerable freedom, especially to officers. Indeed, the young princes, at any rate, spent most of their leisure enjoying themselves in entertainments on the most lavish scale. They were drinking one day in the quarters of Sextus Tarquinius. Collatinus, son of Egarius, was also present, when someone chanced to mention the subject of wives. Each of them, of course, extravagantly praised his own, and the rivalry got hotter and hotter, until Collatinus suddenly cried, "Stop! What need is there of words, when in a few hours we can prove beyond doubt the incomparable superiority of my Lucretia? We are all young and strong. Why shouldn't we ride to Rome and see with our own eyes what kind of women our wives are? There is no better evidence, I assure you, than what a man finds when he enters his wife's room unexpectedly." They had all drunk a good deal, and the proposal appealed to them, so they mounted their horses and galloped off to Rome. They reached the city as dusk was falling, and there the wives of the royal princes were found, enjoying themselves with a group of young friends at a dinner party, in the greatest luxury. The riders then went on to Galatia, where they found Lucretia very differently employed. It was already late at night, but there, in the hall of her house, surrounded by her busy maidservants, she was still hard at work by lamplight upon her spinning. Which wife had won the contest in womanly virtue was no longer in doubt. With all courtesy, Lucretia rose to bid her husband and the princes welcome, and Collatinus, pleased with his success, invited his friends to sup with him. It was that fateful supper that Lucretia's beauty and proven chastity kindled in Sextus Tarquinius the flame of lust, and determined him to debauch her. Nothing further occurred that night. The little jaunt was over, and the young men rode back to camp. A few days later, Sextus, without Collatinus's knowledge, returned with one companion to Galatia, where he was hospitably welcomed in Lucretia's house, and, after supper, escorted like the honoured visitor he was thought to be to the guest chamber. Here he waited till the house was asleep, and then, when all was quiet, he drew his sword and made his way to Lucretia's room, determined to rape her. She was asleep. Laying his left hand on her breast, "Lucretia," he whispered, "not a sound. I am Sextus Tarquinius. I am armed. If you utter a word, I will kill you." Lucretia opened her eyes in terror. Death was imminent, no help at hand. Sextus urged his love, begged her to submit, pleaded, threatened, used every weapon that might conquer a woman's heart, but all in vain. Not even the fear of death could bend her will. "If death will not move you," Sextus cried, "dishonour shall. I will kill you first, then cut the throat of a slave and lay his naked body by your side. Will they not believe that you have been caught in adultery with a servant and paid the price?" Even the most resolute chastity could not have stood against this dreadful threat. Lucretia yielded. Sextus enjoyed her and rode away, proud of his success. The unhappy girl wrote to her father in Rome, and to her husband in Argia, urging them both to come at once with a trusted friend, and quickly, for a frightful thing had happened. Her father came with Valerius, Valessus' son, her husband with Brutus, with whom he was returning to Rome when he was met by the messenger. They found Lucretia sitting in her room in deep distress. Tears rose to her eyes as they entered, and to her husband's question, "Is it well with you?" she answered, "No. What can be well with a woman who has lost her honor? In your bed, Collatinus, is the impression of another man. My body only has been violated. My heart is innocent, and death will be my witness. Give me your solemn promise that the adulterer shall be punished. He is Sextus Tarquinius. He it is who last night came as my enemy, disguised as my guest, and took his pleasure of me. That pleasure will be my death, and his too, if you are men." The promise was given. One after another they tried to comfort her. They told her she was helpless and therefore innocent, that he alone was guilty. It was the mind, they said, that sinned, not the body. Without intention, there could never be guilt. "What is due to him," Lucretia said, "is for you to decide. As for me, I am innocent of fault, but I will take my punishment. Never shall Lucretia provide a precedent for unchaste women to escape what they deserve." With these words, she drew a knife from under her robe and drove it into her heart, and fell forward, dead. Her father and husband were overwhelmed with grief. While they stood, weeping helplessly, Brutus drew the bloody knife from Lucretia's body, and holding it before him, cried, "By this girl's blood, none more chaste till a tyrant wronged her, and by the gods, I swear that with a sword and fire, and whatever else can lend strength to my arm, I will pursue Lucius Tarquinius the Proud, his wicked wife and all his children, and never again will I let them or any other man be king in Rome." He put the knife into Collatinus's hands, then passed it to Lucretius, then to Valerius. All looked at him in astonishment. A miracle had happened. He was a changed man. Obedient to his command, they swore an oath. Grief was forgotten in the sudden surge of anger, and when Brutus called upon them to make war, from that instant upon the tyrant's throne, they took him for their leader. Lucretia's body was carried from the house into the public square. Crowds gathered, as crowds will, to gape and wonder, and the sight was unexpected enough and horrible enough to attract them. Anger at the criminal brutality of the king's son and sympathy with the father's grief stirred every heart. And when Brutus cried out that it was time for deeds, not tears, and urged them, like true Romans, to take up arms against the tyrants who had dared treat them as a vanquished enemy, not a man amongst them could resist the call. The boldest spirits offered themselves at once for service. The rest soon followed their lead. Lucretia's father was left to hold Calatia. Guards were posted to prevent news of the rising from reaching the palace, and with Brutus in command, the armed populace began their march on Rome.